Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us again today for another weekly dose of any of your questions, and we will love to answer to help your decisions easier towards buying or selling a home or anything that has to do with financing or refinancing your home. So what we'd like to do today, oh by the way, let's keep introducing ourselves till everybody knows us better. So Robert with Realty One Group and my good friend
Peter with All Western Mortgage.
Perfect. So what we want to talk about today is another question that we get a lot, and strangely enough, we both get it. Even though we're in different fields, we get this question probably more than anything from buyers and people who are refinancing, and that's closing costs. So luckily, I actually had that question asked today on my way to your office by a buyer that we're looking to put in an offer today. Robert, should I pay for the closing cost or should I negotiate them into the deal? So there's a lot of ramifications to this question, and hopefully we can answer that today and get some clearance on it. And then of course, if you have additional questions, just put some comments below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So my theory on it is, and this is what I've been telling my clients to do, is I truly believe it's a personal decision more than it is a business decision. So for me personally, I would prefer, if I can, if the deal allows it, I would prefer to roll the closing cost into the transaction. And basically what you're doing, you're financing your own closing cost and raising the price of the home that you're purchasing so you don't have to dish that money out of pocket. For me, that's a big deal because I'd rather keep my money and use it either for another deal or do some fix up to the house or whatever it may be. And it's not really going to affect me that much over the long period of the loan. But again, that's something that maybe you want to talk to your spouse first of all. Definitely check with her first or him, and then maybe ask your accountant. But for me personally, that's what works for me. That's what I suggest to my clients, but it's ultimately your decision on how that works. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in a couple of minutes here, but I do want to get Peter's take on what you think about that and what do you see your clients do and what do you think works better.
All right, so I get that question a lot too. As a matter of fact, two people today asked me about rolling the closing costs in. So on a refinance, it's actually pretty common. Almost everybody rolls their closing costs into the loan.
Right.
Once in a great while, you have somebody that says, you know what, I don't want my balance to go up. Can I just come in with all the closing costs? So that's possible. Pretty rare, but it is possible. On purchase, it really depends on the person. Technically, you can include the closing costs into the loan, but it's not just as simple as, hey, I've got a $200,000 loan, I've got a $200,000 purchase, I'm going to close that on this house, and I'm going to add $5,000 in closing costs. In order to do that, you really have to get the seller involved. This is where the seller has to agree to increase the sales price. So usually this is where a good realtor such as yourself is going to come in and have to negotiate. Now, this, Robert, sometimes you get sellers that will agree to work with you and sometimes they won't.
Right.
The idea behind this is that, let's just say you want a seller that says, hey, I want $200,000 for this house. Nothing less. I'm not going a penny less. Right. At that point, you as the agent can come in and say, look, we'll give you $205,000, but we want you to credit back that $5,000 for closing costs.
Right.
The benefit to that is then the only thing you have to come in as the buyer is you have to come in with the down payment. Depending on the type of loan, FHA would be 3.5, conventional would be 5%. But the benefit of doing that is now you can come in with as little as just your down payment. So we get that a lot from clients wanting to include closing costs. We have some clients that will come in and want to pay everything out of pocket because they don't want that balance to go up. They want to keep that loan amount as low as possible. So it really depends on the consumer.
Agreed. So I think that kind of sums it up with the same strategy or idea that I have behind it. The couple of things that could get tricky in a purchase, okay, especially right now that we are in a seller's market. This strategy I think is great, right? I love not to have to give that money out of pocket and roll it into the purchase price and just pay it as part of my mortgage for the next 30 years or however long I'm going to own this home. However, it's so challenging today to do that more than usual because the competition out there for these homes is so great. So you have to structure your purchase to be able to have the best possible chance to get it accepted. So if you're ever in a situation where we have 1 or 2 offers in for the same property, probably is not going to happen. So in that case, we have to go in usually full price, no concessions, nothing crazy, just a super clean offer to have the best chance to get that offer accepted. Otherwise, the other person is probably going to get it. If we're lucky enough to be in a situation where there is no other offer on the table and we're the only offer, that typically seems to work a little bit better. You have more of a chance to roll that closing cost into the loan. But again, it goes back to what Peter said. As long as the seller is happy with the net that they're receiving, that's going to be the key if they choose to accept that or not. So it's going to be situation by situation. Each one's going to be different. The great thing is that it is possible. It is an option. If you don't have the additional funds, it can be worked into the deal. It's just going to be on a case-by-case basis.
Let me add one important thing actually on that topic, because I actually had one yesterday. So one thing that you guys have to understand, and this is very important, that if you need to add closing cost into the loan, you have to do it before you get under contract or while you're getting under the contract. I had somebody ask me yesterday, hey, I want to roll my, can I roll my closing cost into the contract? So I looked at the contract, exactly. I looked at the contract. There was no seller concessions in there. So I said, look, unfortunately, I can't just add them in. It has to be written into the contract, and I, as a loan officer, have to follow the contract. So if your contract doesn't specify that you're getting anything for closing costs, it's probably too late for me to add it at this point. So you really need to make that decision before you get under contract, whether you want closing costs included or if you don't. And then a little bit of a side note here, just to give you an idea as far how much that will cost you. So if you add $5,000 into closing costs, that's probably going to add roughly about $25 a month to your payment. So you're saving $5,000, but obviously your payment's going to be a little bit higher because you're rolling the closing cost into the loan.
Right. So, and that's based on a $200,000 loan amount, right?
Yeah, $200,000 loan. So let's just say you get $5,000 in closing costs. Your loan amount will now be $5,000 higher, say $205 as an example, and now your payment would be about $25 more than it would originally be.
Right. So I hope that helps. Again, we don't want to keep these too long, but anytime that, so the reason we want to do these little videos these are things that sometimes come up later in the deal. So our goal is to try to educate and put this information out there. That way you can have this conversation early enough in the process where something like, your friend or your client, something like that doesn't happen. So that's why it's very important to have a good realtor in your corner, to have a great loan officer, because you want to have these conversations before you structure your offer, because once the offer is done, it's accepted. It's pretty difficult. It's not impossible, but very difficult to go back and make that change.
And that's the key, Robert. You really have to decide early on which direction you're going to go into, because if you don't, it's probably going to be too late after you get under contract. And when you're negotiating, you're going to want to know, obviously, how you're going to negotiate that contract. It's very hard to go into the negotiating table after both parties have agreed to a contract. So, again, do it as soon as possible. And I always encourage you to, look at all scenarios. Sometimes people can go either way. Sometimes they have no choice. Some people says, look, I have enough for a down payment. I can't do anything more than that. So we can still make the deal work, but you have to let us know, early in the ball game.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. What we're gonna do, in case anybody missed anything, we're gonna start putting these on my YouTube channel. Usually in a day or two, I can have it uploaded. So if you need to go back and look at it, if you missed any information, you can definitely do that, or simply just give either one of us a call, put a comment, and we'll get right back to you. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you guys later.